Pastizzo's background includes working side by side with doctors in Air Force emergency rooms, teaching high school English and drama in England, touring as a stand-up comedian and a professional actor in Europe and the US, working as a healthcare administrator and marketing executive for various agencies in New York, and working as a residential counselor at a school for emotionally disabled teenage boys. In the past 19 years, Mr. Pastizzo has addressed audiences in healthcare, education, business, and US military audiences worldwide. He and his wife Susan are authors of 2 books and make their home in the Adirondack Mountains of New York State. And today he's presenting Live Your Best Life, Tips on Self-Care and Finding Joy. So I present to you Frank Pastizzo.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kristen, very much for that introduction. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to be here. It's a little bit different for me. I've done some type of program like this all over the world for 1,000 people, for 1,000 different audiences and thousands of people, and to come here and do it on the computer is a little bit different for me, but it's also fun because I don't have to leave my own home, and I live here with my wife and my 89-year-old mother who is in the advanced stages of dementia. We removed her from a nursing home on April 2nd in Lake Placid, and she moved home, and I retired from my job 3 years prior to when I planned on retiring because of COVID and wanting to be able to spend quality time with my mother. I didn't want to expose her. So my job has drastically changed over the last 2 months. For the last 3.5 years, I've been working very closely with emotionally disabled boys at a school and orphanage dormitory setting. And prior to that, my background is working with people with developmental disabilities and also working in long-term care residential settings. I've been in human services my whole career. I began in 1976 as an emergency room technician in the military, working with patients in emergency rooms and medical surgical wards. And the one thing that I held dear to my heart in those days in human services was that there is nothing that I am going to initiate or begin with one of my customers until I have found a way to explain to that customer what I'm going to do next. People have a right to know what your plan is, especially when we're in a caring situation. So I like to start off with a little bit of music because music is very important to me. My mom used to pack my sisters off to school before I was old enough to go to school. But she would still make me a brown bag lunch and write Frankie on it. And I would go to the pretend school under the piano. And I would hold on to her leg and she would play. And of course, that kind of went into me growing up to be a musician and a performer. And so I'm just going to warm up my voice a little bit more with the beginning of a little bit of the Elton John song, if that's all right to kick this off with. When I say softly, slowly,
like that'll explain. Yes.
Hold me closer, tiny dancer. Count the headlights on the highway. clean sheets of linen. You had a busy day today. The cardinal rule of public speaking is first you tell your audience what you're going to tell them, then you tell them what you told them, which I always thought was really bizarre. It becomes hard to tell whether I'm telling you what I'm going to be telling you or telling you what I'm telling you or telling you what I've already told you. And to tell you the truth, sometimes I can't tell. I tend to digress, but I'll get to that in a moment. I think some people like the digression joke. That's clever. He just digressed while he was talking about digression. Some people like a little bit more apparency to their humor. They want to know that's a joke. I recognize that. I'll laugh now. You know why crows never get hit when they're eating roadkill? Because they go, car! All right, that's a different level. But what I like to do is I like to say that it takes a certain level of courage to tell a stupid joke, to be able to laugh at yourself for being a little bit goofy. It's people who take their job seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously. These are the people that I want to hang out with. D.H. Lawrence, the British author, said, as long as there's a little bit of a laugh going on, things are okay. But as soon as this infernal seriousness raises its head like an ugly slick, all is lost. This is a book called Choice Theory by Dr. William Glasser. People who are in the education field are very familiar with the work of Glasser. The premise of this book is simple. If we want to affect the quality of another person's moment, day, or life, that person needs to grant us access into his or her choice world, into his or her quality world. Now, Glasser maintains that every human being requires 4 senses in life: a sense of belonging, a sense of freedom, a sense of power, and a sense of fun. And if we remove any one of those senses from any person, we have a less than fulfilled person, a less than fulfilled human being. So what I want to talk about, and the other point is that if I want to affect the quality of another person's moment, day, or life, they're not going to let me into their choice world unless I can find, if I threaten their sense of belonging, freedom, power, or fun, I'm not getting in. And so I'm not going to be effective in enhancing their lives. When I went into working with people with developmental disabilities, I realized that these people were struggling with every fiber of their being to make meaningful connections with me. The last thing that I could ever show anyone is that I would rather not be there. And that's the rub, because if I said to my audience, and I've done it many times, if you could be any place in the world right now, where would you choose to be? And there'd be beaches and palm trees and the mountains and the woods and the lakes, and we'd be looking for leisure and love and everything. And I would ask, how many of you people chose to put yourself at work? Mostly, that's not where we choose to be. Although during COVID-19, I can tell you right now that I miss working with groups of people and speaking to people and spending time interacting directly. The thing about eye contact is eye contact feels closer than 6 feet. So we can talk about social distancing all we want. It only takes a good eye contact with a person to show that you really care about them. And that's something that we really need to have, especially during this COVID-19. So people need a sense of belonging, freedom, power, and fun. I have my own spin on those things. We need a sense of belonging. Have you ever tried to hand in a partially completed form to a forms clerk in a motor vehicle office? Did you ever try that? Yeah, you might do it once. you get relegated over to the half shelf where the form doesn't even fit. And we're scared. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to get this wrong. We are now in hopes of motor vehicle office redemption. And even if there's nobody in line, you got to walk through these roped off areas like cattle at an auction. We do a lot of things so people don't feel a sense of belonging. Or somebody will say, can I help you? It's like, oh, would you? It's like, there's just people who just aren't into providing service. But I believe that it's instinctual for us to provide service. And I would use it as an example what I call an ER analogy. Now, I spent 6 years at the beginning of my career working in emergency rooms, dealing with people in crisis. My job was to stabilize that crisis. First, do no harm. First, do no harm. Don't make it worse. So, calm, eye contact, reassurance, letting people know. My ER analogy is, if you were not medically trained and you were in an emergency room and a mother emerged with a wounded child, I believe that all of us would instinctually do whatever we could to help in that situation without doing any harm. We would jump to be of service in that situation. Another analogy is you're asked to help a friend cater and stand by and serve tables at a funeral dinner, and you don't know who's passed away. You don't know anyone. We're going to do our utmost to help and not hinder, to make sure we're there, but stay back when we don't want to bother things. This idea of understanding what people may need and almost having a sixth sense about how I'm going to carry myself with empathy and try to make sure that I'm supported completely in this environment. This sixth sense that we have, I think we all have it. I ask my audiences, who makes the cut? Who in your life do you allow to be held so reverently that you would be supportive of them, like the mother in the emergency room, or like the family who's just lost a loved one? But who might not make that cut in your world? Who do you exclude from that type of unconditional support? If we decide to not exclude anyone, then we're always going to be practicing our art of connecting with people at the level that they want to be connected, at the level at which they want to be connected. So this idea of a sense of belonging and the idea of a sense of freedom, sometimes when we're at work and we're working one-on-one with a person who is locked into their own world that might only be a small fraction of the life they've lived, we need to be able to immerse ourselves in that world of that person in a way that is satisfying for that person. And so sometimes we always have to lay our own agendas on the back burner. We have to become better listeners. And so I'm not just going to say become a better listener without showing you how to become a better listener. And so I have a little game to play right now. And I have a list of 20 words, 10 pairs of words. I'd like you to just please listen to this list. Jacket, calendar, alarm, apple, light, smoke, train, ice, cup, airplane, forest, mud, speaker, raincoat, Woodstock, tweed, thermostat, cobweb, heater, dust. That's a list of 20 words, 10 pairs of words. Now, I can ask my audience on the computer right now, what word was paired up with the word train? You might not remember, or maybe you did. But I'm going to tell you that train was paired up with ice. And what just happened was I said, I have a list of 20 words, 10 pairs of words. I'd like you to listen to this list. But then, because I put something in front of the camera and something between you and I started to read something and I was no longer making the eye contact that I was talking about, suddenly you allowed your mind to wander. And I would hold true that some of this list in your mind sounded something like this. And you weren't quite locked onto it. But now watch. I have another list of 20 words, 10 pairs of words. This time I'd like you to please listen with a different part of your mind. With the part of your mind that you get to use when somebody says, have fun with it. Be creative. Come up with your own way. This time, when I give you 2 words, I'd like you to just quickly draw a picture that connects the 2 words together, even if they're not connected. For instance, if I say tree, microphone, picture a tree with a microphone sticking into it, or picture a microphone that's shaped like a tree so that when you speak into it, the branches are right in front of your face. It doesn't matter. The more creative you make the picture, the more indelibly, the more permanently the words will be left in your mind. So here we go. Draw the picture. Window, halo. Tree, microphone. Ocean, whisper. Poodle, cloud. Cube, puddle. Piano, staircase. Boat, triangle. Shoe, cake. Violin, leather. Table, lilac. Canoe, ukulele. That's 22 words, 11 pairs of words, 1 reading. Now, we could unmute this so we could hear this, but I've done this for audiences up to 1,200, and about 85% of them or more get this. Now, here we go. What word went with tree? Microphone. Window. Ocean. Staircase. And if you said piano, that's backwards from the way I gave it to you, but it doesn't matter because my story, my list now belongs to you. What word went with cloud? It was poodle. And again, that's backwards from the way I gave it to you. And an hour from now, this list would still be stuck in your mind. So it goes window, halo, tree, microphone, ocean, whisper, poodle, cloud, cube, puddle, piano, staircase, boat, triangle, canoe, ukulele, violin, leather, shoe cake. And the reason why I use this game in this program is understanding how people need to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of connection. What do you think would happen to our level of connection with others if we used this kind of intense listening when they were telling us their stories from their lives that are important to them? I used to have an awful habit. I used to look a person square in the eye and act like I was listening to them. I'd nod my head and lift up my eyebrows and even vocalize responses like, is that right? When actually, the first couple of sentences they gave me reminded me of a more important story because it was one of my stories. And I'm not listening to that person at all. I'm actually thinking about my own story to such a degree in my mind, I'm actually rehearsing what I'm going to say as soon as this person stops talking. Does anybody else have this habit from time to time? But what if I use the other level of listening and I look a person right in the eye and I say, how'd your uncle's gallbladder surgery turn out? And they realized that I was listening with enough intensity when they told me 2 weeks ago that I remembered what type of operation her mother's brother had. Or how'd your grandson's piano recital go? Didn't he do that for Elise? How'd that go? Or you told me about that vacation you just got back from, and it sounded so awesome. My wife and I just made reservations. We're going to book. And you let another person know that he or she had that level of influence on you, that you would schedule your family vacation based upon his or her recommendation. You start doing things like this, and you start to become part of another person's choice world and their quality world. Because we have to try harder. We're human beings. We make mistakes. We have virtual playgrounds going on up here. You could be acting like you're listening to me right now, and you might be thinking about what you're going to cook for supper after this program. It doesn't take much for any of our minds to wander. And I was just thinking that there's a game I play with the audience, and so maybe you can just do it with yourself. Answer a question for me. What color is a polar bear? And what do cows drink? If you said milk, it's not milk. They drink water. But because I had you thinking of the polar bear, you might have thought milk when I said, because it's white. It doesn't take much to get our wires crossed and to make a human mistake, especially when we're working with people in a very dynamic environment that's constantly changing through the whole course of the day. We can all make a mistake. We need to be tolerant of our mistakes with each other. We need to let people feel safe being human. And so this undertaking that I've gone through in the last 2 months is bringing my mom home with me from the advanced dementia care unit at the nursing home in Lake Placid, and relearning that my job is to try to make I think I said my mother. Did I say I brought my wife home I brought my mother home, and my wife and I are working with her. And what we found out is that our job is to make her life as rewarding, as fulfilling as we possibly can. And so we're trying to share the joy we have in having her here, and the joy we have of being able to be home together and hanging out. We want to make every day splendid. And so we take care of each other. We take care of ourselves. There's a lot of two-on-one time with my mom. There's a lot of times that we need to do one-on-one time because we have a house to manage. We have dishes and laundry and vacuuming, and she participates in everything that she can participate in. But sometimes we have to engage with her and then go do our own thing and come back. And often we give each other breaks. And the break is that we have an intercom system, and we can hear that my wife can hear that I've gone through my mother's biography for about the 8th time in the morning. And she realizes that I'm not losing my patience, but she thinks that if I recharge my batteries a little bit for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, that I can go down the hall and she can come in and take over the engagement with mom and redirect to knitting or playing the piano or doing some reading or just doing some conversing. When I get that break, just like if I'm at work at Mountain Lake Academy, I don't go sit down and twiddle my thumbs. That's when I go do the vacuuming or the laundry or the dishes and all the other chores and tasks that have to be done around this home, so that when my wife gets her break, she can go focus on something else that's on her list to do. And so this taking care of each other is basically the idea that these are the people that we're going to spend most of our lives with. We spend most of our waking lives at work. We spend more of our life at work, our waking time at work, than we do at home with our loved ones. People, I think it's a joke when people say, this is my job, it's not my life. It is our lives. It's one of the most significant parts of our lives. And if these places where I spend most of my waking time do not reflect the attitude, the values, the energies that I want in my life, then I'm responsible for that. And so I like to give people tips on how to bring an upbeat, eyebrows up attitude to every workplace situation that you're doing. I have a tip. You know when you feel the need to unload on somebody, to vent, let somebody know exactly what it is that just happened to you that was so awful. See if you have the presence of mind to ask yourself, do I have the right to introduce this negativity into this very atmosphere where people are spending most of their waking time? I mean, can I leave this for some private venting episode later on? Do I need to let people know about it now? And I think if we have that kind of thought for ourselves and say, this is not the time or the place, this is not my home. A lot of times people wish they were at their own homes when they're in a work setting. Frequently, the people that we're providing services to are at home. They're looking for that same sense of belonging, freedom, power, and fun that we all want. And frequently, mostly, we are the ones they count upon most to do the on-purpose things that give them that sense of belonging, freedom, power, and fun. Again, I don't want to act like I don't want to be there. I have to be eyebrows up. I have to make sure that the attitude of the room gets better when I enter it. So here's my tip: how to bring and maintain a positive, upbeat attitude through each day. Think back to the day you interviewed for your job. Just think back to that day. And that's it. That's my tip. Because if you think back to the day you interviewed for a job, I'll tell you what happened. First off, we looked nice. You know, we looked pretty good. And our new employer looked across the desk and said, tell me, can you? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, have you ever? Lots. Well, do you think oh, absolutely. On the first week in your new job, you could be in the middle of 3 complicated tasks, and somebody could walk up to you and say, excuse me, can you help me? I need to go get 3 artificial Christmas trees out of storage and decorate the old place. Can you come help me? On the first week in your new job, we would, sure. You know, what if somebody asked us today? It's like, you know, I'd love to, but every one of us is tasked with the idea that we are contributing to a community continuum. A community continuum. Here's my example of a community continuum. If I'm a school teacher in a school and I'm worried that my mother is being neglected and alone in her nursing home or in her healthcare facility, that is really going to affect my ability to teach school. That's a fact. If I'm preoccupied with my mother not getting the care she needs, that's going to affect my job teaching school in the school. And if I'm if I'm working in the nursing home, and I'm apprehensive how my son or daughter is being treated by his school teacher or gym teacher or teacher's aide or cafeteria worker, that's going to affect my ability to take care of somebody's mom in a nursing home. We are all part of a community continuum, and there are no unimportant interactions. No matter what we're doing, we're bringing with it some emotion, we're bringing with it some thought, and we're bringing with it some attitude. And so, eyebrows up, first do no harm. So we've written a couple of books, and the first book that we ever wrote was one that is entitled Cherish, and it's an acronym. And Cherish stands for, the C stands for connect. No matter who you're with, if it's a person with dementia who's living in a facility or in a home, you have to find out where they are and go to them. You have to find out what world they're talking about and go with them. If you're going to open up a YouTube video, it's something that you're going to be watching with that person, not away from that person. We're trying to find ways to enhance the engagement, to connect. Remember, what word goes with window? Halo. We have the ability to connect with people and remember their lives almost better than they can often, and we can go over. The other thing I'm learning is don't finish my mom's paragraphs for her. I know what she's going to say. I've heard it a lot of times, but I tend to step in and finish it for her because I know what she's going to say. I don't have any patience. I have to draw it in and let her express at her pace, at her time. I'm learning more and more, and I know when we have our comment period, there's something that you're going to be able to share with me that I'm going to learn from you today. The H in cherish stands for humanize. We're human beings. We make mistakes. Did you ever lock your keys in the car? Holy cow. If somebody locks their keys in the car, I'm not going to go, ugh. That's 7th grade. I'll say, I'll call AAA, I'll get a coat hanger, I'll be right with you. Don't feel bad. I've done that 5 times. I locked my keys in the car at a drive-through ATM at a bank with the motor running. The window was frozen, wouldn't go down. I got out. The door was in the way. I closed the door. I don't know why I pushed the button before I closed the door. The woman behind me was full of empathy. She was like, the guy behind her wasn't. He was like, I am very, very reluctant to ridicule a person when he or she makes a mistake because I know in the not too distant future, I'm going to make a doozy. My father used to go, which means go on to the next thing, get over it. The E in cherish stands for emote. Many people come into work settings and they confuse professionalism with some type of stiffness. A clown can be a professional. An actor's a professional. A musician's a professional. Warm it up. Lift up your eyebrows. Put a smile in your eyes. Remember, eye contact feels closer than 6 feet. Look at people, smile. The R in cherish stands for recognize. I don't care who you are. If somebody says something nice to you, you remember it for your whole life. Your whole life. When somebody says something nice to you and gives you kudos, you remember it. So become a kudo giver. Louis Anderson, the comedian, said his father used to give positive reinforcement like this. He'd go, Say it. Say it. Don't just say good job. Tell people what they did well with specifics. I saw the way you handled that situation at the front door the other day. That man's dignity was at risk. The way you stepped in and helped him and opened the door, I mean, you made his day. I'm not done. We're lucky to have you. Learn to say things like that to each other. It reinforces the good stuff. The I and the S in cherish go together. I and the S stand for illegalize snapping. People snap, they bark, they get curt, they get short, they bite. Leave it out. Learn to say things like, I'm sorry, that came out harsher than I wanted. Learn to leave it out. Don't be curt. Don't be short. Don't bite people. If we connect, humanize, emote, recognize, illegalize snapping, the last one's easy. We harmonize. There are no two people in any place that have ever experienced the perfectly exact same thing. We're all looking through different filters. But we can find, and I love this definition of the word professionalism. Angelo Dundee, Muhammad Ali's boxing coach, said, to be a professional means to perform at a constant despite distractions. So what's the constant at which we want to perform? In human services, the constant at which we want to perform has to be always, as Stephen Covey said, seeking to understand before being understood. Learning to work with boys who are emotionally disabled, who at times have hit me and thrown things and spit in my face, and learning to not react, to react in a way that's conscious. What we learn in the fields of taking care of people with disabilities and emotional difficulties is that when people are hurt, they retreat. When people are bothered and angry, they isolate themselves, they don't want to connect, and they lash out. These are the things that people do when they're hurt. We want to find ways to bring them back in. And so me retaliating and being angry with somebody who's spit on me or done something is not the answer. What we learn in therapeutic crisis intervention, which is the first question that we have to ask ourselves always, is how am I feeling? That's the only thing that's important at first, is how are you feeling? Because if you're not on baseline, if you're not ready, you cannot be therapeutic. So in order to be therapeutic, you have to take care of yourself. You have to go do some chores and help your teammates and get ready to re-engage. And when it comes time to engage and to connect and humanize and emote, recognize and never snap, and harmonize, make sure that you and the people around you feel a sense of belonging, freedom, power, and fun. To do that, you have to be in complete balance. You got to be ready. And so if you know the people you work with, if you're supportive of the people you work with, you can tell when people are not on baseline. And you can say to a friend, hey, you got a phone call in the office. When they go in the office and realize they don't have a phone call, they're not going to think that you tried to fool them. They're going to think that you're asking them to take a break, get a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, take a walk, warm it up, come on back. So that feels like I've pretty much, I think I got last three things before I close out. I think that's coming up on close to 35, 36 minutes, and I breezed through pretty well. The first one is the goal is not to treat other people the way you like to be treated. And it's a good start, and the first time I heard that, I did the Scooby-Doo thing. The goal is not to treat other people the way you like to be treated. The goal is to treat other people the way they like. So in order to treat my mom or a resident the way that person wants to be treated, I got to close this thing. I got to open these. I got to open this. I got to open this. And I have to try to figure out what this person's style is. And then, as a demonstration of human service, the demonstration of empathy, I'm going to modify my style. I'm going to change my style. My style is not important. I'm going to change my style so that I'm more desirable for this person. I want to match that person's style. The willingness to modify your own style to connect with another person is at the heart of excellence in human service. Think about the person at the motor vehicle office. Can you imagine if the person said to you, hey, look, if you get stuck on any of that form, just let me know and I'll help you with it. We have a lot of ways and systems and rules here to make things run faster, but it's a little bit confusing. I was confused too. Need some help, just let me know, okay? Well, if somebody gives me that kind of individual attention and eye contact and talks to me right from their heart to my heart like I'm an equal with them, sometimes we mistake our job knowledge as superiority to everybody who doesn't have the same job knowledge. You know, I mean, it's just, we have to look and see the person in front of us and see beyond the role and connect with people. George Bernard Shaw was quoted as saying something, and I did some further research. Actually, the quote was not George Bernard Shaw's. It was Louis L'Amour, the Western author. And he said, "Masters in the art of living know no clear distinction between their work and their play, their labor, their leisure, their education, or their recreation. They hardly know which is which. They simply pursue their own visions of excellence in everything they're doing and leave others to determine whether they are at work or at play. To themselves, they always seem to be doing both." And Henry David Thoreau said, it's one of my favorite quotes, I have it as a paperweight on my desk. He said, "To affect the quality of the day, that is the highest of arts." I hope I've affected the quality of your day. I thank you very much for having me with you. And Kristen, if you want to open it up to comments, questions, that's fine now. I'd love to have people unmuted.
Yes, thank you very much for that presentation. I know I really loved when you were talking about treating others the way they want to be treated and connecting with them at the level that they want and are ready to. I think that really does apply so much to person-centered care. It's something
Absolutely.
we talk quite a bit about in dementia and Alzheimer's care.